case trimming, range cards, and the 26 Nosler this week on Mail Call Mondays. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Well, welcome back to another Monday, and we are back on track. This actually is Monday that we are filming this show, and we should have it out by this evening. So let's cross our fingers and hope so. I've been really working hard to try to get us back on track with the videos and get us caught up. So thank you guys for bearing with me. If you have not seen last week's show, that was the K&M Precision Rifle Series recap. We went over and talked about all the stuff that we did during the K&M PRS match. That ended up being a 2-hour plus video, so I really hope you guys got some good info out of it, and I hope you were able to sit through me just rattling on for that long. Well, since we did a lot of carrying on in this one, let's go ahead and kick off this video with our first question, and that comes from Kyle. Kyle asks, what is the tolerance for case trimming before you start to see it significantly affect group size? Well, what I always recommend when you're talking about case trimming is I recommend going by book values, the factor that is listed in the reloading manual for the length of the case. That's what I recommend going by unless you have a good reason to deviate from that. What I'll generally do is I'll allow my brass to grow until it hits that max value, and then I will trim it back to the minimum value and then allow it to grow again. Generally within those two values, I don't see any group size difference between them. Now what you can see is if you go beyond that max value, or for some reason you have a short case neck cut in your chamber, then when that case neck grows beyond what that value is, you can get some impingement. When you lock that bolt down, you're actually driving that case mouth past the end of the chamber into the lead, and it'll cause it to pinch down on that bullet. Well, that increases your neck tension, and that can cause some accuracy issues with that bullet release. And actually, when you go to an extreme end, it can cause some safety issues because you're really crimping that bullet into that case neck, and it can cause your pressures to spike. So I don't recommend going beyond the reloading manual listed maximum case length unless you know what you're doing and you have a really good reason to do that. Richard asks, 300 Blackout, is it worth it over the 5.56 or stay with a true 30 caliber like the 308? Well, Richard, that's a hard question to ask. It really depends on what you're going to do with that specific caliber. Now, the 300 Blackout was really designed to be an AR caliber. It was designed to be chambered in a standard size AR-15, and it was designed to be able to cycle reliably with subsonic ammunition. So if you have an AR-15, in a shorter barrel and you want to put a suppressor on it, 300 Blackout is an excellent caliber. Now, of course, you are handicapped with the ballistics of a heavy subsonic bullet. That thing drops like a rock, so you really need to know what your drop table is, and it's really going to be an effective short-range caliber. Now, if you load it supersonic, you can stretch that out a little bit, but then when you start to go to that end, you're really losing a lot of performance versus a 308. So my recommendation is if you want a compact, suppressed package to say hunt, do some varmint hunting like hogs, coyotes, that kind of stuff, then maybe that's a good option. If you just want to goof around with a semi-automatic suppressed rifle, really good option. But if you're going to reach out, you're going to do anything with precision, you're going to do anything long range, then the 308 is a much better option over the 300 Blackout. Austin asks, the choice between getting 10 of your all-time favorite firearms for free or designing one custom rifle from bare metal to suit your needs, what would John do? Well, Austin, that's a really interesting question. Unfortunately, I've not been put in the situation where I have to make that kind of decision. But really, I've got a lot of stuff in the safe here already. the possibility of getting my 10 all-time favorite firearms, which I haven't even really sat down and thought about what my 10 would be, is very interesting. But I think what would be more interesting is having the resources to build and R&D my own rifle from the ground up. That would be absolutely awesome, and if I were to do that and do it in a manner with which I could then turn that over to production to a company to be able to give some value back to the shooting community, I think that would be absolutely awesome. And no matter what the dollar value of my 10, most desired firearms are versus that, I think being able to R&D my own rifle and get it out there into the hands of other shooters would outweigh any personal enjoyment I would get from shooting 10 guns that already exist. So I think I would have to go with building my own rifle from scratch and being able to add that to the shooting community. Jesse asks, range card range increments. How small is too small? Well, Jesse, that is really going to depend upon what your target is that you're trying to shoot. What I would suggest doing is when you're looking at your range card increments, look at what the ballistic difference is, what the difference in drop between the increments are. And if that drop is going to be greater than the size of your target, then you may want to consider shrinking your increments down a little bit. Now, I will generally go with 50-yard increments, and sometimes I'll go with 25-yard increments, but I won't go with any smaller than 25-yard increments. 50-yard increments really lets me extrapolate pretty closely what would be going on in between those increments, so I don't need to actually print them out on a chart much smaller than that. So that's just kind of what I go by. When you start to get into smaller increments like 25, 20-yard increments, 10-yard increments, that chart gets really long and it's really difficult to package that in a usable format. If you shrink those numbers down too small, it becomes really difficult to read in low lighting conditions, bad light, rain, etc. So I like to keep the chart size relatively large and the increments pretty decent, at least 50-yard increments. That way I can stick it on a buttstock, stick it on the side of the rifle, tag it and hang it off the scope, and be able to use it pretty easily. Jason asks, how about mils versus MOA for 1,000 yards plus? Well, Jason, the mils versus MOA argument has raged for a long time, ever since we started to have mil turrets come out on scopes. And my recommendation is always have your reticle and your turrets match. So if you have a mil reticle, you want mil turrets. If you have MOA reticle, you want MOA turrets. Beyond that, it really is not going to matter. Now, the increments that we generally see are 1/10 mil increments or 1/4 MOA increments. Now, 1/10 of a mil is a coarser adjustment. That equates to about 1/3 MOA. Not perfectly, but for our discussion, we'll consider it about that. So you're looking at a coarser adjustment in 1/10 mil increments, but you're still well below what the average shooter is able to hold as far as accuracy with a tactical rifle, not a bench rest, something that's bagged in a front rest, etc. So the size increments doesn't really matter. The reason I really prefer mils over MOA for extended shooting is when you start dealing with a larger number of shooters, there's a greater chance that you are going to have other shooters on the line with mil reticles versus MOA reticles. MOA reticles are gaining some popularity in different scope manufacturers, but you still see more mil reticles than you see MOA reticles. So the ability to drop down on the range and have a guy right next to you with a mil reticle spotting for you with a mil rifle scope, there's a higher percentage of that occurring than finding two shooters that you just threw on the line and both of them have MOA reticles. So again, I still prefer mil versus that. But as long as the reticle and the turrets match, the reticle is accurate and the turrets are accurate, you're going to be fine with either one. Sean asks, any long-range precision schools out there longer than the normal 2, 3, 5 day time frame? Thanks, Devil. Well, Sean, I really haven't heard of any open schools where anyone who wants to can come register that is longer than a 5-day format. There are some professional schools out there that go into a 2-week format, and they'll usually do a week, then a weekend off, and then another weekend or another week. But those are usually limited to military or law enforcement, and they're basically professional schools where the guys that are there are being paid to be there. I think the primary reason that you don't see many civilian open long-range schools for more than 5 days is because you start to run into that vacation time issue. A lot of guys really have to scrape together to get the vacation time to go to these things because they're not being paid to go to them. So you really limit the classes down to 2 to 3 days. I know we were looking at running a basic precision rifle course here, and we were really looking at packing it down to 2 days. That way we can get it in on a Saturday and Sunday, and we don't have to make guys take vacation to come to a class. So I think that's really why you don't see anything longer than 5 days, because you really start to extend into that vacation time. And for guys that aren't doing it professionally, there's some family stress to that as well. Myself and my partner, we end up fighting that battle constantly to try to get to travel to shoot matches all over the country. So when you start to have to coordinate with your spouse and with your kids and all this to get things going, it makes it really difficult with the longer schools. It's easier to say, hey, I'm only going to be gone for a couple of days than, hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. That starts to put a little bit of pressure on family life. However, if any of you guys out there know of non-military or LE schools that allow civilians to register that are longer than a 5-day format, please let me know, and we'll mention them on the next show, or we'll put them in the blog post on our website, because I'm not really aware of any right now. Jason asks, are bubble levels really necessary for tactical shooting and tactical competitions? Well, Jason, they're not really necessary. And if they are useful is going to be an individual kind of thing. I don't use them. I have a couple of scopes that have bases that have a bubble level built into them. I don't get any of the flip out lever type bubble levels because I think there is a lot of room for error in there. But I generally don't find them really useful. I don't seem to have any accuracy problems at long range without a bubble level. I seem to be fairly good at leveling out the scope using that horizontal stadia line and using the horizon or what other references I have. So it really isn't that big of a deal for me. However, if you as a shooter find that you're having problems with canning the rifle and you're consistently having problems with canning the rifle, then a level may be a good idea for you to try to use to help you get past that. What I will caution though is you want to make sure that you have a level placed on your rifle somewhere that you're not breaking your cheek weld to look at the level. I really like the level that's included in the spur mounts, which is right on the back. There are several other mounts like the odd mount that also have the level in the back of the mount, so you can look right at it and see it. If you've got a flip out level and it's on the side where you can see it with your non-shooting eye, with your support side eye, that's fine as well. But if you start putting them like on the top of the scope where you have to break your position and look over, this is going to cause a problem, because when you break it, look over, get the rifle leveled out, and then get back in and get that good cheek weld, more than likely you've knocked the rifle out of position from where it was. So those I don't think are going to be useful to many shooters at all. Additionally, be careful of cheap bubble levels that flip out and flip back. It's really easy to get some slop in that little hinge, and now the level isn't level to the rail that it's mounted on. So you really want something that's fairly robust, that doesn't swing, that doesn't have a hinge, and is not going to get bent or knocked around. So that's why I favor the ones that are built into mounts or built into rings. And our final question of the week comes from Tyler. 26 Nosler. Looks awesome and like the end of 260 Remington. Well, Tyler, I have to disagree with you there. I don't think that 260 Remington is going anywhere. Same thing with 6.5 Creedmoor or any of the other short action 6.5 cartridges. The real benefit of the short action 6.5s is, first of all, they fit in a short action receiver. You get that short bolt throw. Most of the competitions that we shoot in speed limit the cartridges. So a Magnum or a long action cartridge, although you have the ability to drive at 6.5 to really high speeds, I think what I was just reading on the 26 is a 130 grain cartridge. You can run it up to 3,400 foot per second, which is blazing fast. But that's not going to be legal for most of the matches because that's just going to beat steel up badly. So you're not going to be able to run it to its full capacity. Also, I have not seen a whole lot on barrel life on those. You can bet that blazing a bullet out that fast, you are not going to have really good barrel life. You're going to be replacing barrels very quickly. And if you take a look at using something like a 26 Nosler at a match like K&M that we just came off of, you are going to burn the throat out of that barrel. When you're talking about stages where you're, dropping 10 rounds down just as quick as you can run the bolt and pull the trigger, that's going to torch that throat. The 26 Nosler is really designed for hunters. It's designed for those guys that are not going out and they're not practicing on a regular basis and they're not getting their drop tables down and they're not getting their ability to range estimate or carry a laser rangefinder with them. And it's something that they can grab, they can pull out of the pack, and they can put the crosshairs on a game animal inside 400 yards and pull the trigger and not worry about what they do with the scope or what they do with the turrets or holdovers or any of that. The 26 Nosler, it's really designed. In fact, one of their tag phrases is that it's point aim, point impact to 415 yards. When I looked at it, you're really getting a rise and a drop of within 4 to 5 inches from 0 to 400 yards if you're using a 350 yard zero on the rifle. So it's got a really small max point blank zone, a really large max point blank range that you can engage targets with. And that's going off of the kill zone on a game animal. That's not going off of a steel target that may be MOA or sub-MOA. There you're still going to have some problems. So I don't think you're going to see the 26 Nosler show up at tactical rifle competitions anytime soon. You can talk to guys that have decided to go out and try to game it and run 300 Win Mags at competitions like K&M, and the rifles really beat them up. It's much better to go with something that's lower recoil, that has a little bit longer barrel life, and that you can run that bolt quick and handle the rifle quickly versus something that's just a flat laser. So that's my opinion on the 26 Nosler. I have to add that I have not gotten any trigger time on one yet. I don't even know anybody that has one in, because here in southern Indiana, it's just not going to appeal to hunters around here. So we'll have to see how that goes. If you've got a 26 Nosler and you've got some range experience with it, I would really love to hear what your opinion is on it. If you've got any questions or comments on anything else that we've discussed in this show or any shooting topics in general, please leave them in the comments section or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. I know this is a short one, but again, we want to get back on track. We want to start getting more videos out. So we're going to wrap this, we're going to edit it, and we're going to get it out to you so you can watch it. And hey, if you're not sitting at home watching our videos, get out and shoot.